Welcome back to Be a Refuge podcast. We've been having so much fun just talking with people connected to our community in different ways. And so, we're glad that you're listening.
Super glad to be here. And today it's just me and Kathy chatting about some of the things that makes the refuge unique and some of the things about our community that are a little bit different. And I think one of the big things is holidays are hard for a lot of people. And we're just try to be a community that actually acknowledges that. And I think some communities do, and I think that's growing, but on the whole, usually it's like, oh my gosh, it's Christmas. Oh my gosh, it's Mother's Day. And there's just this complete ignoring or just not a realization of like how hard so many holidays are for so many people when it comes to loss and grief and ambiguous loss. And so that's kind of what we wanted to chat about today.
Oh my gosh, I feel like that piece of like people go, what do we do for these holidays? And we're like, how do we survive and honor these holidays as best we can for all of us in our community? And it is really tricky. I think this episode will come out right before Mother's Day 2023. And so just starting with that day is a really conflicting day for so many people and for different reasons. And, this thought, a lot of people grew up in churches where the mom stood up and got roses. And, there were these things of people who weren't able to have children or partnered and didn't, all the things that had lost children, all the things that were conflicted feelings, and there's no place to talk about it. And so you sit in shame and silence. And I have to say, as a mom who's lost a kid now since 2019, Mother's Day used to not be super hard for me. I always tried to honor it in my writing and at the refuge. I'll share in a couple minutes about that. But I can say now I would be devastated if I was sitting in a place that made it this thing of just like the awesomeness of motherhood. And because it doesn't acknowledge that everybody in the room, all of this other pain, and it just, kind of goes to one certain group of people. But even that group, just moms, are struggling, So it's really tricky. So what we did, this is years ago, and it's a little different now because we don't meet on Sunday nights every single week. So we don't hit some holidays meeting, but then we try and go, how can we care for each other through those holidays, even if we're not meeting? And so this particular Mother's Day, we're actually not meeting. It's not a spiritual formation Sunday. But in the past, what we have tried to do is honor everybody. And in this, we all mother. There's lots of ways to mother. We mother dreams, we mother pets, we mother each other, we mother people, we mother, goodness in the world. And so that honoring, and I could say this, I mean, this is part of Be a Refuge podcast. It's kind of processing things in our community in real time. And so one of the things I can say is that even that's changed in a more non-binary world. And so we haven't hit on one of those holidays on a Sunday for a couple years, and then it's been COVID and some things. But I think the biggest part is really recognizing that Mother's Day, Father's Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays are really tricky days for people. A lot of people, actually, the Halloween season, for different reasons, a lot of things and a lot of people's stories like happen there. There's a lot of things from past faith experiences and things in that time frame. Like they're just really hard. And you can start to feel it. Like as I look and see people are talking about Mother's Day, I feel for people in our community that I know are reading those things and feeling scared and braced, I guess, braced for impact. And so how can we as a community not just ignore that, but honor?
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember early in my refuge days before, I think when I was just doing music stuff, I remember there was a Mother's Day and just that acknowledgement of, and I don't have my own children, but that acknowledgement of like everyone being, having mothering in their life. And I definitely have that. There's children that I've nannied and relationships that I've nurtured. And um, that was really meaningful to me to just to be seen in that way and to be honored in that way and acknowledged, even though it's not what is the typical thing, and that my presence has value in that way, even though I don't have my own children.
Yeah, it's just, I think that's a part, and I'm so glad to hear that. Like, it makes me grateful for like different people's experiences. And I think that the part that is so easy to do is to just either skip it all together, which can happen, skip it all together, or focus in this one area, which really is just not going to work. If we're really a healing community, then we have to honor what healing looks like for everybody. And but the tricky part is then to make sure that then nothing can happen, and this can sometimes happen. And I think
Mm,
people sometimes feel that, like, am I not supposed to say anything? Am I not supposed to be happy on Mother's Day?
yeah.
And I think that the part about the refuge that I think is so crucial is that we all get to be where we're at,
Mm,
and that it's not, we all get to be where we're at, and the more that it's named, the more helpful it is. And
mm,
this came up, it just made me think of it just now. I wouldn't have thought of it before, but I remember this a long time ago in the life of the refuge. This isn't about holidays. This is about the refuge is a healing community with a lot of people in recovery and a lot of people really honest about pain. And I always used to tell people the refuge is no different, honestly, than other groups. The same pain exists in other groups. The only difference is that they have insurance and take better vacations. I mean, that's kind of what I used to say. This is a long time ago, but just kind of about more resourced, kind of put together churches, is that we all struggle. And so, but at the refuge, because pain is so like on the surface, some people shared that they were afraid to be happy,
mm,
to express joy, and to feel
mm,
good. And that was such an important thing to name, because that's real. Am I allowed to be happy here?
yeah.
And the answer is yes. So, like,
Mm,
I'm allowed to celebrate Mother's Day. Mother's Day is, of course, very conflicted for me personally because since Shara died, but I'm allowed to be grateful. And then I'm allowed to honor that my friends are suffering on this day, and they're not
mm.
mutually exclusive. We need to show up in all of our fullness. And it's a tricky dance. I mean, that's the part we're naming here. It's really hard.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of Easter. Someone who came to our Easter service this year was just sharing they were just struggling and they almost didn't come. And because they're like, I don't feel like new life at all. I don't feel resurrection at all. And they came and they were glad they came, but they still were like, this is hard because this is a celebratory day. And we try to acknowledge the complications of that story too. Um, but yeah, when, how do we hold community when some people are living in that joy and celebration, and some people are just suffering in the trenches, and some people, it depends on the day. I know for me, some days I'm feeling rough still, and some days I'm feeling good, and allowing myself to feel sadness and allowing myself to feel joy.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm so glad you brought up Easter, because this is like part of the conversations I love. Is that I start remembering all these other holidays.
Mhm.
So, Easter, Good Friday, Lent, even Lent, Valentine's Day,
Mm.
like some these like all have these things like really loaded in them. And this Easter was super special at the refuge, and you really cultivated this amazing space. But what's powerful about it, to be honest, is that there's kind of room for it all. Like there were old songs and new songs, and there was a spirit of capturing that there were people feeling like you shared. And there were people that could say he is risen, and there's people that couldn't. And like naming all that is really a beautiful freedom. But it also is tricky because you don't sometimes know where the target is in the same way as we were used to in some of our old beliefs or our old systems. And so I think that the space of creating a space where we can all be wherever we need to be, but also be clear about the purpose of the gathering, because it is, around the world, people are celebrating Easter Sunday. And so to not like shy away from it completely, but to honor that there's a mix in the room. And it's people are feeling a lot of conflicted feelings, and that's okay.
Mm.
And that is okay. And but gosh, as leaders and nurturers of space, this is hard.
Yeah. Well, and it reminds me of that verse where it says, rejoice with those who rejoice and mourn with those who mourn. And, I've always thought of that as like, either or, but now in this moment, I'm like, maybe it's a both and. In the same moment, can we hold as a community those who are in a good season, and that's awesome and okay, and hold our folks who are struggling, and like not let one diminish the other like it's a pie and there's only so much resource. I think that kind of is tied into that scarcity thing, where it's like if the world is scarce, then I have to have all the joy or all the sorrow, and but if the world's abundant and generous, like maybe there's enough room for all of us to be where we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I think the other part is just evolving, like being willing to evolve. Because I was thinking about Valentine's Day, and I mean, we used to have a Valentine's Day pity party. Was this before your time? Were
Yeah.
you okay?
Yeah, but I think I'm refuge in spirit, because back in the old days on Facebook, I used to always post that Adam Sandler clip from The Wedding Singer, where he's like, "Love stinks." Yeah, yeah. I would always, every year on Valentine's Day, I would post that on Facebook. So I was with you in spirit.
That is so funny. We should put that up because it's such a weird day. So we used to have this pity party, and it was actually really fun. We played games. It gave people something to do on Valentine's Day. This is a great example. Like, I've been married, a long time now, and Valentine's Day is not really a thing for us. And so we would go, and even though we were together, like it was for everybody. It was for anybody to have something to do on Valentine's Day. And it was really, really fun. And then we kind of moved it. We did a fun night with Kate Hurley, and then she came and did some music. We did that for Valentine's Day, and that kind of had live music. And then over time, it just kind of fell off. I can't remember why, but there wasn't anybody that said, "Oh my gosh, we have to do that." It just was like a different season. There was just something that we didn't maybe need to do that. But for years, we sent something in the mail to everybody on Valentine's Day that wasn't partnered in a way that Valentine's Day might feel weird. And then, I think, again, same thing. I can't remember what it was. It just like it didn't happen in a certain year, but reminding us all that we are loved. And and I think that the part that ultimately all of it is about is being a place that is not caught up into the system that tells us what we have to be like. And but we're part of it. Valentine's Day comes, and so like, how can we honor each other? And I think that sometimes Valentine's Day falls on, I think it might be Ash Wednesday this year. Is that positive? Is that possible? Was it Ash Wednesday last year?
I don't remember.
I
I
can't
don't
remember
think so,
either.
but yeah, it may
Yeah,
have
I
been.
think it might be next year. There was something, and I was like, oh my gosh, then we do something for Ash Wednesday.
Yeah.
And on Christmas, the holiday, this is the part, and people listening in the who are connected to the Refuge community know this, that like really trying to honor, like, the holidays, all of them bring up wounds from our families and from that, especially those holidays at the end of the year, like the traditions that I have to go see my family, I have to juggle these things. My faith has really changed, so I don't want to go do this, or I've grown and I can't go back into these systems. And so everybody starts feeling some of those things. And I think Blue Christmas has helped us, have that space. But I think just creating as many opportunities for light and healing and community during that time, the rituals and rhythms of feasts and gatherings and movie nights and, things that help people survive the holidays is really, I love it. I do.
Mm,
And I think it's
yeah.
helpful. And I've seen people not need it as much over time because it's like I was in that season where I really needed that. And now I'm kind of feeling a little bit better. New people entering in and needing a little bit more support.
Yeah. Can you describe Blue Christmas for folks who are listening who maybe aren't familiar with what that is?
Yeah, so Blue Christmas, it's like our friend Jenny Herrick, like her prints are just all over the refuge. I mean, in the deepest parts of us. And I'm always reminded because she's brought Blue Christmas to us. And the very first one was at the Grange Hall, and it was called Hold This Space for Grief. And it was in December. And it had stations. And she always made things so beautiful. Like she did it like nobody else could do it. And it just was a time in the holiday season that people could hold their grief because the holidays, kind of starting really at Halloween, but for sure by Thanksgiving, people really remember loss of loved ones, not having a family to go to, the lack of money, like a lot of things really come up in this divorces and kids juggling kids, like so much grief is like. And so that very first one was station night. And then the following year was actually when we moved into our facility. So this was that many years ago. And she said, let's change it to Blue Christmas. She had seen a Blue Christmas somewhere and she brought all this blue. And we kind of did the same thing. And so Blue Christmas has evolved, but it's a shared time where people come. We kind of meet together in a simple way with a very simple shared liturgy, lighting some candles to remember loss of different things, and then time at stations. And people can go and connect in the ways that they need. Those stations are created by different people now. She kind of did the first one, and then people kind of picked it up from there. And then coming back together to end. And it's not about I'm here to get all this hope and now I'm going to make it through. Actually, just to honor and acknowledge the season. So yeah, that's Blue Christmas, and it's become a really special part of our community for sure.
And we love to share. So if anybody wants these stations and liturgies and resources, email us at, what's our email address?
The new one. Just do it. info@therefugeco.org.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you would like some of those resources to start something like that in your community, but yeah, that's it's been interesting seeing my change and my interaction with that space over the years, because I've had a lot of loss in my life. But it's never really been connected to holidays until this past year. And so, I remember coming to Blue Christmas a couple times and really appreciating the space and appreciating the contemplative aspects. I think that was when Kate Hurley was doing music at that, wasn't she? Didn't she
Oh
do that
yeah,
for a
she
couple
did music
years?
for that too. Yeah, she did.
Um,
Blue Christmas.
and then I started doing music for it, and so I wouldn't really participate. But this last year I just went through a divorce in the fall, and so this was the first Christmas that I really felt what people were feeling. And yeah, even though I've had a lot of death and loss in my life, my family didn't have a lot of Christmas traditions. Like we celebrated Christmas, but it was different every year. And so I didn't have that strong connection to like nostalgia. And so but this year was, feeling the loss of that part of my life. And I was just so grateful for that space to be able to like actually engage with it and in a different way. And just left feeling a sense of gratitude that in understanding in a new way of what my friends have lots of my friends experience, because I never really understood it. I mean, I understood in an empathetic way of like, I get holidays are really hard, but it personally wasn't ever hard for me. It was kind of just like, it wasn't that special, so it wasn't that hard. But when I tried to make my own home and my own family and my own, life and rituals, and then losing that, like, it was really meaningful to be able to share in that with my friends in a different way this last year.
Yeah, I'm so glad that that space is there. And I just really feel you too, because I was a really similar, a different way, but I kind of did it for other people. And then when Jared died, I remember walking in for me. And I think just that, like, these simple spaces and rituals help us. And they're worth it. Like, they're worth the effort. And I'm glad that you had that experience of just knowing you could let down your guard and feel some things that you needed to feel. And I think sometimes at the refuge, I mean, I think this because we've been convening these things for a long time. It's like, did they matter? Is it worth it? You got to go. And then it's like, yes, they are. There's certain traditions that at least, and we're always evolving. So if it becomes not useful, or people don't miss it, if it's gone, then we probably will let it drop off. But then there's a need. It doesn't matter how many people come. We know that the people who were there got something healing from. It's totally worth it.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was, I don't know if it was during COVID, but it was at least 2 or 3 years ago, but it was like 5 degrees. Do you remember
Yes.
that one? And
Yes.
so, maybe like 6 people came, but it was still beautiful. And I brought my guitar, and it was too cold to play outside by the fire. So I played the drum. I played djembe, and my hands were frozen, and
Mm.
but
Ah,
yeah, but I mean, it's just, yeah, there's still something about like just those rhythms that's important, and creating space even for 5 people, like, that Christmas sucks for. Like, and it was worth it. I didn't regret 1 minute of freezing my butt off and playing drums.
yeah, I love that. And I mean, I just have that. And Jenny was like that too. I mean, she's like, I always want more people to participate in certain things, but it doesn't matter. We're supposed to be here. It's supposed to be here, and it's totally worth it. And every time we would just go, oh my gosh, that is what I needed
Mhm.
tonight. And I was thinking about, some of these holidays and the rituals and the rhythms, is that it's like we're always evolving. And so we're changing. Like what we need one year is different than the next year. But I think the part to name is it is conflicting. It's
Mm.
tough. So we have this run, it's like Mother's Day, Father's Day, like they're really close together, and they really do have a lot of things with it. And it kind of points to me a little bit of, I think we've talked about this on Be a Refuge. I'm almost positive, but I'm not positive. It's the idea of creating a corrective experience for people in community.
Mm.
And a corrective experience is that thing that kind of like we're expecting to get one thing because that was from our past experience. So we're going to repeat the trauma or the heart or the damage or whatever. And then we actually are met with a corrective experience that heals us. And so I think that part I really want us to always keep in front of us. And that looks different for everybody, but that, maybe Mother's Day and Father's Day and Christmas, the Christmas holiday, Thanksgiving, now, Easter. I think for some people, this Easter was a corrective experience. I do. And so, and I love that. And that it's like leaving room for it, but also not expecting everybody to have that at the same time.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that's always hard too, because it's like you want to like have whatever it is like matter in the same way for everybody, but it's like letting go of that.
Yeah, lots of letting go.
Lots of letting go, lots of weird. But I think that part of in community is just our shared human experience, and that we've got to be honest about it and show up as we are. And I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, the conversation has really helped me in this little bit of just like, yeah, and that's in, I love this holiday
Yeah.
and I hate this holiday.
Yeah.
And not let the haters pull the lovers down, and not let the lovers not acknowledge the haters.
Force the haters to be happy.
Yes, or be all
Yeah.
mad at them for
Yeah.
struggling.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of us.
Yes. Yeah, that's the and just it's that, theme of practicing, keep practicing, keep learning, keep growing. And I think even and just letting ourselves wrestle with that things are weird. Like Thanksgiving is so weird and hard because there's so much history that's so messed up and like damaging and painful for our Indigenous brothers and sisters. And um we're part of that story. Like the refuge sits on land that was stolen from um people that still exist and thrive in different ways. But how do we deal with that? And how do we honor like this, holiday that is also about gathering around good food and celebrating gratitude, and how do we hold all of that together in community, and those complications of injustice with gathering and celebrating together. And yeah, it's
Ah,
it's tricky. It's tricky,
it
but it's
is.
important to try to stumble through,
Yeah,
because
it
you
is.
either don't celebrate or we have to participate in everything, and or ignore it. And it's like, what about both? Like, what if we can honor, and in a real way, not like lip service, and find ways to engage in justice, but also ways to celebrate and connect with each other and eat good food, because there's something nourishing about that as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, and I mean, it just made me think of July 4th. There's
Yeah.
another one, and we said that like it's such a conflicted holiday, and I started trying to call it Interdependence Day. Like, let's change this. Like this, we need interdependence, but it's so hard because and maybe in some of our old experiences, like yay, and then we have gotten more frank about our country's history, and yet it is our country and we live here. And so, all the things, but that's exactly what we're in for. And it's just really holding like that and sign, like just holding it all, in all the joy and all the sorrow and all the conflicted and all the togetherness and all the questions and all the here's what remains, like just to hold it all together. And that is kind of ultimately what we're trying to do. And then honoring that is hard.
Yeah.
And it's totally worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just honoring that it's a process and it changes over time. I think we've said that several times in this, but there may be seasons where we're like, yeah, we don't want to do this anymore. And there may be seasons where we start something new. And so I think it's just continuing to adapt and be willing to just listen to the heartbeat of what's going on in our community and hold things loosely together.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Together. And so we don't have our rapid fire questions because
Oh
we're
yeah.
together, but what are you leaving with a little more or a little less of?
You go first. I need a second.
I might too. I mean, I think I'm leaving with a little more respect for how hard it is
Mm,
in the moment, like just processing it. It feels a little muddled, like it's kind of a little bit, because it is. And so, yeah, just respect for that. And also a sense of gratitude that we're trying, or a respect that we're trying. Like we are dedicated to it. And so it's not pride, but it's like a respect that we're.
yeah. Yeah, I feel that too. Just like we're trying. We're
We're trying, people. Do you hear that?
And that, that's not a small thing to just try, and like, we're gonna mess it up, but to try again. So
Yeah, love it.